place name Machaerus does not appear in the Bible, it was an incredibly important location at the time of Jesus. And according to the first century historian Josephus, it was the place of John the Baptist's imprisonment and ultimately of his execution. Now, the imprisonment and execution of John the Baptist is recorded a few times in the Gospels. Mark 6 lets us know that Herod Antipas had imprisoned John for speaking against his marriage to Herodias, who was his sister-in-law. Now, history tells us that for this marriage to happen, they both divorced their spouses, an act that would come back to haunt Antipas in more ways than one. First, by becoming guilty of murdering John the Baptist, and second, by having to meet his former father-in-law in a battle that he would lose. But back to Mark 6. We learn that Antipas actually enjoyed hearing John speak to amuse himself, but in order to fulfill a lustful oath to his stepdaughter during his birthday banquet, Antipas had John beheaded. Now, John's disciples courageously came to inquire of the body and were allowed to bury it. But Mark 6 goes into this background story to tell us that Herod Antipas was nervous. He had heard that Jesus was actually John the Baptist risen from the dead, as a few people in the Old Testament had also been risen from the dead, that is. But for our purposes today, we're more concerned about the location of Antipas's banquet, the palace fortress of Machaerus. Now, Machaerus is mostly remembered as being built by Antipas's father, Herod the Great. But Herod the Great was responsible for completely reimagining and rebuilding Machaerus. It was actually originally founded by the Hasmoneans in 90 BC and then destroyed by Rome in 57 BC. And its location was really unmatched. It was east of the Dead Sea, and from its mountainous seat, it commanded views of Jerusalem, Masada, Jericho, and several of the fortified cities of Israel. So it was strategically important as a first line of defense against any attack from the east. It could send signals by fire or smoke. So Herod the Great turned the ruins of Machaerus from just a citadel to a luxurious palace and lower city. John the Baptist would have been housed in the lower city, and the infamous banquet of Antipas would have occurred up in the palace. Today, that palace has been excavated and the paved banquet hall has been found and partially reconstructed. Even the location of Antipas's throne has been identified, the throne niche. This is the place from which Antipas would have given the order to execute John. Archaeology has also clarified why Salome, the daughter of Herodias, would have needed to leave the party to consult with her mother. There were two banquet halls. Presumably, the women partied in one and the men in another. So to ask her mother's advice, Salome had to go to the women's side. Intriguingly, there has also been some more recent news to do with Machaerus. Several ostraca, which are potsherds with writing on them, were rediscovered in 2019 and were given to a researcher for translation. So we're just waiting on an official publication on that. After the time of Antipas, Machaerus was taken up as a refuge for Jewish rebels against Rome in the 1st century. The Roman military built a siege wall, camps, and began a massive siege ramp. The ramp wasn't finished, though. As the historian Josephus records, the capture and public torture of a young prominent rebel prompted a peace pact. It allowed for rebels to leave peaceably, but those who would not surrender, who attempted to escape, faced mass slaughter of the men and an enslavement of the women and children. Thanks for watching. Click the playlist on screen now to watch more spotlights. And if you want to read the full article, click the link in the description. You can always go to BibleDiscoveryTV.com for more videos, articles, and resources.